Okay, folks, let's go with the latest edition of NDD. I'm Pete Mulroy. The accolades keep coming to no surprise for Jeremiah Love, who was placed on yet another preseason watch list this week. Easily a Heisman candidate who ran for over 1,100 yards and 17 rushing scores a season ago. Named recently to the 2025 Walter Camp Player of the Year watch list. That's an award from those of you who probably know it presented annually to the most outstanding player in collegiate American football. Love had been previously named a camp preseason All-American, as well as a name on the Maxwell Award watch list, and he's widely considered the top running back in all of college football. Ran for touchdowns in Notre Dame's first 13 games of last season while averaging nearly 7 yards per carry. You talk about the idea that he is maybe the nation's best running back, and he's absolutely also one of the nation's best players. I think Notre Dame's got a couple of guys that could receive those types of conversation and accolades from their position. You talk about guys like Emil Wagner, more on him in a minute. Certainly Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, phenomenal running back. How good would he be if he was the bell cow on his own right? Instead, Notre Dame, with J. Love back for this season, along with Price, they don't necessarily just possess the nation's best running back, but they have the country's top stable of backs. You have Love receiving that aforementioned support from the ever-dangerous Price. Throw in Aeneas Williams, who showed well during his true freshman campaign a season ago. A healthy Jabron Payne is a big deal. Talked a little bit about that last week as we got a look in camp. And a rising talent in Kedron Young. You look at this backfield, it is an absolute living nightmare for opponents. And obviously, Jeremiah Love is the biggest reason for that. Just for you-know-what and giggles, some of the bigger names on the initial list of 46 players to watch on the camp include Penn State quarterback Drew Aller, Miami QB Carson Beck, who the Irish will see week 1 in Coral Gable against the Hurricanes, Navy QB Blake Horvath, Notre Dame, very familiar with him, and Clemson signal caller Cade Klubnik, who a lot of people are expecting big things from. I think he'll be in the Heisman race as well, and big things from that Clemson program this year. Jeremiah Smith, the star wide receiver from Ohio State, and new Colorado quarterback Caden Salter also on there. Found it interesting that Florida quarterback DJ Lagway, who a lot of people are high on going into this year, and UT's Arch Manning were also on that list. A lot of really good names. Jeremiah Love certainly deserving of it. And I wanted to make that point that this young man just continues to be placed on these preseason All-American watch lists for the outright player, best player in the country, outright best running back in the country, top offensive player. The lists go on, and obviously a strong Heisman candidate heading into this year. So another big deal for Jeremiah Love as we prepare for the start of the season, just about 25 days away now. Continuing with our player spotlights, want to talk, we've been focusing with the group up front the last couple of days, and for obvious reasons. It's probably America's best starting five up front on the offensive line, even with the absence of Charles Jagasaw. But I want to talk about Emil Wagner today. Started all 16 games for the Irish last season and an anchor during that 11-1 regular season. Numerous preseason All-America lists he's been placed on heading into the upcoming season, and he's a Notre Dame Scholar Athlete. Won that award, which is given annually to a Notre Dame football player who excels both in the classroom and on the field. That is a tremendous deal. So you talk about all of the things Emil Wagner does on the field, but you got to give him recognition for what he does off of it. And you talk about, in addition to earning the Notre Dame Scholar Athlete Award, he's been nominated for a spot on the All-State Good Works team for his steady commitment to service. I talked about that a couple episodes ago. And the Werfel Trophy watch list, which encompasses academics, athletics, and community service, which is also a nice tip of the cap. He's the perfect example, Emil Wagner is, for what a collegiate athlete should be. Excellence in competition, excellence in the classroom, and excellence in the community. Boom, boom, boom. Emil Wagner, the junior, has done that from start to finish. Played every snap in 6 of Notre Dame's games last season, including the college football playoff victory over Georgia and in the national title game with Ohio State. And you go back to some of the just eye-popping offensive numbers Notre Dame put up last season, mostly led by the rushing attack, obviously Jay Love and quarterback Riley Leonard. But Emil Wagner was a huge part in the Irish racking up over 400 yards of offense across 5 straight weeks at one point, which included wins over Navy, Army, who were both undefeated at the time Notre Dame played them, and USC. A stat like that really stands out heading into the new season because with anchors like Wagner up front, coupled now with the veteran presence of a guy like Anthony Knapp, who, yeah, he's a veteran here. Ashton Craig is back, and Billy Shrout. This Notre Dame offensive line, which again is probably the nation's best, has the ability to repeat many of the great things they did a season ago. Wagner's going to undeniably be a massive part of that. And you talk about him from a player standpoint and what he really excels at. The kid's got exceptional lateral movement, and his overall athleticism at 6'6", 300 is off the charts. I think we've started to see that. He is Notre Dame's Iron Man. And while the Irish, again, do have an incredible talent and leadership up front from some of the guys I mentioned moments ago, Wagner's going to be called upon as the anchor of the unit. His size, the wide base, make him an absolute mauler up front as well. Something that's going to be much needed. When you think about who Notre Dame's going to see this season, specifically in the edge department, you got Reuben Bain Jr., who will probably be a first-round pick out of Miami. And then across from him, Akeem Meisner, who Notre Dame is going to see as a 1-2 punch week one. You think about TJ Searcy from Texas A&M, another really good pass rusher. There are many of them that the Irish are going to run into in a very tough schedule. Those are just a couple I singled out because they go 1-2 in Notre Dame's first 2 games of the season. Having the year that Knapp got experience-wise at left tackle, and then having Emil Wagner at right tackle, who played 16 games, now coming back to lead the way, is absolutely huge, especially when you talk about opening the season on the road in Miami with a very athletic defense they're going to face. He's simply one of the best tackles in the sport. I think you can sort of get that vibe from me here, and that's not an opinion, that's a fact. And because he plays with such confidence and poise, the variations of stunts and blitz packages he's going to see are never going to overwhelm him. And the presence on the right side becomes even more important if you consider perhaps a bit of uncertainty at the right guard position. Sullivan Absher, again, as the inside track. I know in camp, Will Black's been working at guard. Joe Rudolph is going to figure this out. I mean, he's vocal with his guys. He gets in your face. He's going to put the best 5 on the field consistently each and every week. May it look a little different than how they rolled out in camp week 1 when you went day 1 when you went Knapp, Shrouth, Craig in the middle, Absher at right guard, and then Wagner at right tackle. Sure, they're going to tinker around with this, so it would be interesting to see what it might look like if you changed up that right guard position with someone other than Sullivan Absher. But it makes the presence of a veteran like Emil Wagner on that right side, which is without the services of Charles Jagasaw for right now, all the more important. And just an interesting note from camp. Good news from fall camp has seen Charles Jagasaw working in individual drills with Joe Rudolph. He's also been seen coaching different sets of individual drills with other members of the Notre Dame offensive line, Gerby Lambert included. This allows him to be productive. He's involved while he recovers from his summer injury. So he's staying in the mix is Charles Jagasaw. And obviously, again, having the presence of an Emil Wagner from a confidence perspective and a boost perspective for someone like Charles Jagasaw cannot be undersold as well. We know the type of leader he is. We've seen those accolades off the field. I've talked about many of them. That is a big deal now for an entire offensive line group that has big visions heading into this 25-26 campaign. The offensive line, obviously, is one of the best in the country. Due to players like Emil Wagner, the group is that much better. And just to cap here, because you waxing poetically, you almost run out of things to say about the young man, but it won't be any shock at all to see Wagner floated in continued All-America talks throughout the campaign as Notre Dame looks to make another run at a national championship, just like they did coming up just short a season ago. Probably saw this as we wrap up the player spotlights with Emil Wagner. We'll start getting into some of the weaponry the Irish possess. We'll start tomorrow on the outside with Jaden Greathouse. But news yesterday, the first preseason coaches poll came out. Notre Dame landing 5th. Okay, ahead of the Irish in order. Number 1, Texas, followed by Ohio State, which received 20 first-place votes. Penn State, who got 14 first-place votes, and Georgia, who got 3. The only team outside the top 5 to collect first-place votes was Clemson, who landed 1 spot behind the Irish, picking up 2 votes. Now, this list means absolutely nothing with relation to how the season's going to play out. You know that. So it's why it was always, I get why it can be fun prognosticating and picking wins versus losses in college football and the NFL. You do your pick'ems each week. Nobody knows until you see what these teams have on the field and what they look like day in and day out, weekend in and weekend out. And while many might argue here that the Irish should be in the top three, from where I'm sitting, probably ahead of Penn State and Georgia, though I know many people seem to be very high on Penn State. I can't get into it. We've seen how Penn State has responded in some big spots over the last couple of years, coming up short in different instances. So, but Georgia, it reloaded back. They'll be obviously very physical and fast, but if you're asking me how I felt about this, if I was going to do the list, I really have no problem of the teams in the top five, and just not even trying to be a fanboy here. I think comfortably, I probably would have had Notre Dame as number 3, then maybe Penn State at 4 and Georgia at 5. You could make the argument that Clemson could be a top 5 team. The lists get out of control with the guys voting on this because Florida State was a complete dumpster fire last year, and somehow it got 8 votes in this poll. So you don't invest in these things. It gives us an opportunity to talk about it. I think the view from coaches around the country eyeing Notre Dame as a top 5 or better team this early does bode well. You're saying, well, why weren't they, Pete, in the top 3? It probably does have something to do with the quarterback competition taking place, and having a first-time starter one way or the other, be it Carr or Minchie under center. I'm sure that factored in somewhere along the line. Go out and take care of business August 31st, who sits number 10 in the list, and everything falls into place. Just of note, some of the other teams in the coaches' top 25 who Notre Dame's going to see this year: Texas A&M 21, Boise State 25. Additional Irish opponents, namely USC, Navy, and Arkansas, all received votes for placement inside this initial list. So I did think that was of note. Not an easy schedule for the Irish, we know that, but this is not your daddy or your grandpa's Notre Dame team. This is a completely different animal with what they've done, talent up front, speed on both sides of the ball, and especially on the recruiting trail. Not to mention the coaching staff is in lockstep from top to bottom. That all translates to victories. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll see you all tomorrow, same time, same place, right here on Fan Arch and Notre Dame Daily. As always, go Irish.